What's up, bitch? So, we all know Disney for the good and a lot of bad. But regardless of the racism or trying to appeal to the masses to get money, their dick sucking for China, the fact that they've made it almost impossible for any other studio to win an Oscar unless it's Pixar, which, by the way, thank you.
Animated films make up some of our most formative movie experiences as kids.
So many kids watch these movies over and over
And over and over and over and over and over.
I see some parents out there know exactly what we're talking about.
This you? This you? This you? This you?
Their laziness, their gross need to keep growing and overtaking everything, their conservativeness that has slightly gotten better, probably not because of the company necessarily.
13, I don't fuck with fuck with me.
Or just that soulless feeling that I get now every time I look at this fucking castle because of how it has become over the years. Well, regardless of that, Disney has had a major impact in animation and I will never deny that. And I used to be a big fan of their movies. Well, I'm a fan of their movies, not the company itself. And yeah, because guess what? Their movies are classics, and some are considered masterpieces. Some may be dated, but they're really good animated films regardless. And their animation is definitely worth the praise. But unlike the unlikely hit or miss that is their partner Pixar, Disney has a higher chance to make the Disney man roll in his ice cube tray. Sometimes for good reasons, sometimes because the public is close-minded and they just think, oh, this is a drawing, that's kid with this computer-generated 3D model. Have you seen them bitches polygons? So, if you read the title, you know where I'm going with this. There are a lot of movies in Disney's catalog that have become cult classics or just simply really good underrated movies that are ironically or unironically some of my favorites. Now, as in, oh shit, now I can say, wow, oh fuck, crazy. Now as an adult, that's crazy. Anyway, I'm not a Disney adult, okay? Not at all. I don't like classifying myself with these people. But as I've mentioned 3 times before and counting, I am a sacrificial lover of animation, and so any animation studio is one that I like to look at, and these movies specifically. I also chose to make this a series instead of a conjoined long video like my Mexican animation video, so that I can A, get more videos out of this, B, not make this too long, and C, give every one of these movies their spotlight, and also slightly beat this my healthy. So I am making this a very short series, despite some of these movies already having really good analysis videos, especially this one, Treasure Planet's Biggest Mistake, whatever, I forgot the name. Which is a video I definitely recommend because there's a lot of aspects in that I have inspired not only me for this video, but me in general in how I run my videos, I guess you can say. Alright, anyway. And when I was actually trying to decide what order I wanted to talk about these things, whether from my worst to best or dates or inspired, mostly because I want people to watch all of these segments since I usually lose people in the middle because I check my statistics because I have nothing else better to do with my life. So we're going by date, and for the next couple of days, I just want to talk about Disney's underrated films.
You let other women make a fool of you. Why don't you do right like some other man do?
Starting with our earliest entry, and also one of my favorites for many reasons, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Probably one of the most unique Disney films in every aspect. It is one of the few mature quote-unquote films. I mean, we got guns, we got big jiggly basungas, we got murder, we have a lot of references to sex, and for a lot of us young people, some pretty traumatizing scenes. And even some swearing. Sure, they used to do this a very long time ago, but this is the 1980s, almost 90s, so it wasn't common at this point. But thank God this movie's not baby-fied in any aspect. In fact, they even give the baby a cigarette. Not only that, but it is the most unique looking animated film from Disney's catalog, and you could argue still is the most unique looking. When you look at the story, it's not only one of the few film noir-ish movies that I've seen, but it's just a fun, entertaining movie overall. And to be honest, the first few times that I watched it when I was younger, yeah, honestly, I didn't understand the plot. Mainly because I didn't understand that this was supposed to mean that. I also didn't understand why Jessica was mad at him, or why this guy had been murdered, or why Roger was being framed for it. To be honest, I'm pretty sure I understood absolutely nothing about the plot, considering I was pretty young. But regardless, I still love this movie. I had fun watching it. I had feelings watching it.
She kinda bad though. Is that Frost? You're gay! He's gay! I'm not gay. He's gay!
And I had fucking terror watching it. It's kind of common knowledge that Christopher Lloyd, the main man, Dr. Emmett Brown, and Mr. Clipboard from the hit film Food Fight.
Give us 1 week. Your customers won't know how they lived without brand X.
Made me and many kids absolutely shit ourselves. Whether it was the eyes, the high-pitched voice, the way he melted the clown show, which made me really upset, and I remember that feeling very vividly. Or the way he squished and later on killed off. I don't know, but that entire ending sequence and my experience with it as a child is very engraved in my brain and very traumatizing. But ignoring the nostalgia portion of it, now that I can actually understand this movie, it's just as great as I remember it, even better. Eddie as a character and his relationship with Roger was definitely entertaining to watch. Actually, all of the relationships in this movie, I have to say, are the best part. Roger and Jessica as a couple weirdly works. I don't know what kind of furry shit she's into, but shit is working. Eddie and Dolores, Eddie and his brother, everything in the movie just works. And what a weird idea at the time to make a film noir about a murder case with cartoons. The villain is obvious, but that doesn't matter. He's still entertaining, and so are his goons. Now, I don't know why, but I absolutely adore the entire sequence where Eddie has to hide Roger in the sink while the goons look around. I don't know why I like it a lot, but I just do for some reason. And just the story and character-wise is pretty solid. But you know me, and that's not the part I want to focus on. Most people know that this movie is based on the novel Who Sent a Roger Rabbit, written by Gary K. Wolfe, which, despite having many of the aspects that were later adapted into the film, it is actually quite, and by quite I mean very different. The first and probably the biggest part being that Roger is no longer the murderer, but the murdered. Yes, I know I said it wrong. I know that's not a real word. Don't fucking come for me. Thank you. Roger is the one who hired Eddie to figure out why his employers, the Greasy brothers, wouldn't give Roger his own comic strip, so he was murdered. Some aspects that really differ from the movie is that the characters aren't actually cartoon characters, but rather comic strip characters who can only read and speak in speech bubbles, which I love that. I don't know why. Some, however, do learn to speak vocally. So, instead of having cartoon characters such as Betty Boop, Donald, or Daffy, whatever, you have characters such as Snoopy or Dick Tracy, who I had to look up and who hear me out. They also have another aspect, which is the ability to create doppelgangers that they would normally use as stunt doubles, which disintegrate after a bit. This doppelganger is the Roger that is actually mostly present in the story and who helps out Eddie for most of the book. And one final distinguishing aspect is that the story actually takes place in the present time, or basically when the novel came out, which is 1981 instead of the early 40s and 50s. Now, I have to be completely honest, I've yet to read the novel myself, but I'm very much trying to find a way to read it illegally. As from a bit of research, it's just as well crafted as you would imagine, with a mystery that's more complex and actually takes time to investigate. Unlike the movie, where it's mostly a mystery behind the reason why they did it rather than who did it. So, I won't spoil the mystery since I accidentally spoiled it to myself trying to research it. And I believe that if you like Roger Rabbit, which if you don't, what the fuck is wrong with you? Then I definitely believe that you should read the novel, as it has the most basic ideas of the movie. Or, I guess, the other way around. It also apparently has a lot more mature themes than the movie, which is saying something despite the movie being somewhat what I consider barely touching PG-13. Pause!
Coming out here to pick up a cupcake?
I'm also aware that there are some spin-offs that were made by the original writer, but those aren't exactly as relevant as the original movie. Actually, scratch that. There are 5 Roger Rabbit books. There's Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which is the original. The Who Plugged Roger Rabbit. But that one's more apparently a memo from Eddie's POV, which, again, if you're into Roger Rabbit, then there's no harm in reading it. But I wouldn't say you have to, unlike what I would say about the novel. You have Who Whacked Roger Rabbit, where Eddie's hired as Gary Cooper's bodyguard while filming a new movie in Toontown. That one came out in 2013, okay. And then you have Jessica Rabbit, X Serious Business, which was published May of last year? It has Jessica as the main character, and it goes into in-depth about her origins and her meeting with Roger. Okay, I'm gonna read this one for research, obviously. And the last one being The Road to Toontown from February 2020. Oh wow, right before the pandemic. Huh. Which is basically just a bunch of short stories. Rest assured that I will read the novel and the Jessica one probably, and probably make a little short on, I don't know, probably make a little short on YouTube and just something about it in the near future when I have time to actually read like a nerd.
Chupas.
I'm kidding. I read manga and fanfic. I'm kidding, okay? I'm joking. I read smut. I'm kidding! God damn, Jesus. But that's not how far I've gone down this rabbit hole. Rabbit hole. I'm funny. I really want to kill myself. Now, I actually watched the entire documentary of the behind the scenes in this movie and pretty much everything from the production and everything that went on. And I gotta say that it's an impressive piece of art. I actually recommend that if you like this movie, check out this documentary. It's very interesting. It's available on YouTube and it's only like 30 minutes, so it won't take away anything. I mean, just every little detail in the mechanics and the actors they used and the choice itself to make it hand-drawn live-action mix that, despite not being the only one of its kind, definitely seemed like the most difficult one to pull off, especially at the time. If you watch that documentary, you see how this wasn't during the big CGI era. Not even close to the 90s. It was close to the 90s, but not close enough to Toy Story. So when the characters interacted with objects and their environments, they weren't holding a green ball prop that they would later be CGI'd into looking real like they do nowadays. No. They developed fucking machines to move things around. Like Baby Herman's cigarette. They built a robotic arm that was controlled by another arm. The machines that move the trays that the Penguin servers hold, they had to puppeteer guns. They had to puppeteer a lot of things that they had to move them around more freely when animating. A great example of the puppeteering is the glasses and the drinks for the bartender octopus, so they could move his tentacles around without having to be recluded or secluded or limited to having to draw over machinery. But that's not all. Every single thing they interacted with, a bedsheet, a chair, the fucking window that got a hole through it, it was all practical. It was the late 1980s. I mean, can you imagine the production that went into all of this? The actors themselves had to do some incredible work because unlike today where they have that short green screen puppet that they can kind of interact with and focus on, these guys had to look at absolutely nothing. And Bob Hoskins, who rest in peace, was a master at it, and he was able to add a weight to his arm, refocus on a Roger Rabbit who wasn't even in front of him. I mean, that is just absolutely impressive. In the documentary themselves, they try to give you an idea of what it's like.
The rabbit and myself are going to be in the shot at the same time, all the way through. So I've got to be focused on that rabbit all the way through the shot. How'd you do that? Because you hold your hand up like that and focus on it, then take it away. Immediately your eyes open up to focus, and it's obvious that you're not focused.
What are we gonna do? That's all this we stuff. They just want the rabbit.
That's just the live action portion. The animation was a whole nother layer. They had to draw every single highlight and shadow matching the real life lighting, the way they animated Roger's ears, the shimmer on Jessica's dress, all drawn and painted by hand. And when I say layer, I mean layers. Because they had to make layers much like the art we do nowadays on digital tablets, but these were physical. And because of all that detail they had to add to every single frame, right down to adding a defocus effect. I mean, it is absolutely incredible the amount of effort and patience and struggle that everyone had to go through to develop this movie. And for the technical aspect alone, this movie deserves to have all the recognition in the world. It is said that there isn't a single shot with computer animation. Sure, the green screen and the Toon World may be a little bit dated, but the animation in it's still godly, and that's just one dated aspect in an otherwise unique film. Okay, if I have to keep going any longer, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have a migraine, but I mean, okay, so watch the documentary like I said, and then watch the movie again, but this time, aside from admiring the smoothness and the great quality of the animation, just look at all the details that they add. It's weird, but just try to imagine it in production rather than the film as in a completed state. Whenever a toon interacts with something, what mechanics they use, the way the live action characters interacted with them, just admired it as a piece of production magnificence. I mean, seriously, this movie's just so great from both a visual to a technological to a storytelling standpoint. Well, okay, if you read about it, yeah, it's not technically underrated as some of the other films that I will be talking about in this series. It was actually extremely praised and loved when it came out, so why am I still talking about it? Easy, because this movie fucking slaps, that's why. And okay, maybe it wasn't a failure when it came out, and maybe it's admired for all the right reasons. However, I believe that as time has passed, the movie hasn't been talked about as much as it should, and it has not been taken apart and deconstructed and examined as it should. There's so many live-action animated hybrids that I firmly believe haven't been able to do it correctly. And that's considering that the characters nowadays are supposed to look cartoonishly realistic. Let's be honest, most of these movies are shit. Except Sonic, because I love Sonic. Don't judge me. That's 100% just me being biased. Okay? Thank you. Anyway, I believe that this movie, despite being acclaimed, despite being amazing, it's slowly fading away. I mean, there are aspects like Jessica who I firmly believe that she has such an impact that she will never be forgotten. I mean, man, I sure do hope no Jessica Rabbit cosplayer slide into my DMs. Man, that'd be gross. Yeah, don't do that. I'll be very upset. Well, my point still stands. I feel like this movie has been slowly fading. Though it's visible, it's a little foggy. And mainly probably due to the legal aspects of the movie. Disney hasn't been able to milk its purple nurple since, or is it nurple purples? I don't know. Like it does with literally everything. Which, in a way, I think that's good because it makes this movie like a little special gem that can't be tainted by the rat sad fluid. But also a bit disappointing that it will probably be almost impossible for me to find merch or items from this movie that I love. It's definitely not underrated, but it's slowly heading towards that direction. I mean, yeah, it's an older movie, but many older movies still gets recognition to this day. The worst outcome is that the film industry is seemingly passing it by when it could take inspiration from it and make good shit instead of these. Disney themselves can learn from their own success. This movie is a great building block and great representation of passion, effort, and patience and creativity. I don't understand why they don't use it more, I guess you can say. I adore it. I just want to express how much I care for it. Alright, enough with the sentimental bullshit. I'm gonna go burn down an orphanage. Thank you very much.
It was the first film I'd ever made that my kids could see. And the cinema had all these celebrities with their kids, you know, which is pretty rare. And I think that's probably the proudest I've ever been of a movie, sort of, with that audience, with those kids, you know. That was, yeah.
Hold the work.
All right, let's try the move, man, with the playback. Here we go. Quiet.
R7TM, take 5.
And action.
Nobody move. Eddie Valiant, you're under arrest.
Cut.
Cut. Come back up.
All right, that's a wrap.